G'day all, and welcome back to Improving Your League. Today we are looking at some tips and tricks to help you clear the early game jungle in a more efficient manner with Maokai. So let's get to it. First, let's take a look at the brush mechanics of the mouse. As you can see, as I'm moving the mouse, it's going from green to white to red. Green indicates inside a bush, red means unpathable terrain, and white is outside of a bush. This is an easy way to tell if we're going to get an empowered sapling or not by placing it inside the bush. Next we'll talk about starting camps. There are two main starts for Maokai, a buff start and chicken start. First let's show a buff start on red, but the same mechanics apply for blue as well. The first sapling should be thrown at 59 seconds. Although saplings in the early game only live for 30 seconds, the timer doesn't actually start counting until the saplings hit the ground, and the expiry won't happen if the saplings begin running towards their target. This is the start I mainly use when I am going to contest an early scuttle or the threat of being invaded on my other buff is pretty low. The other start I'll use is on chickens, and this is slightly altered. I like to place my first sapling in the middle of the brush, not the top side, at 102 compared to 59 seconds. To show you why I wait till 102 and place a sapling in the middle of the brush, let's compare the two videos seen here. The video on the left shows a sapling being placed forward and at 1 minute, whereas the video on the right shows a sapling placed at 102 in the middle. Skipping ahead, we see the video on the left fails to splash the saplings over the intended targets as we are rushing to get them before the sapling expires, whereas the video on the right does hit all the targets with the splash. This actually leads to clearing faster on the right, as shown now, despite the sapling being placed later. This is the start I will use when I know I'm either going to be invaded or I have no hope of going for the early scuttle. Let's now move on to each of the non-buff camps. We'll start with Krugs, and while Krugs are the simplest of the camps, it's a good example of showing how to properly space out our cooldowns on them, rather than just slamming them. If you look at the video on the left, it is using its cooldowns as soon as they come up or as near as possible, while the right video is actually spacing out the cooldowns to maximise damage. In the end, we actually see a difference of nearly 4 seconds on the right being faster than the left. Next, let's move on to Grom. It is actually possible to use the brush on the blue side to get your empowered saplings. Simply draw a line at the end of the terrain that you see my mouse moving now and kite Grom to it. Once you're done, walk around him and use Q to knock him back and the saplings will come. Looking to the last of the non-buff camp wolves, these guys, technically you're able to leash them around and get empowered saplings, but I don't think it's worth your time. I struggled even getting it in this tutorial, so I would never try this in a ranked game. Finally, the last tip is actually to do with what you should be doing before the 1 minute mark. Since your saplings only last 30 seconds, your first two saplings can be thrown into contested territory as temporary wards and to deter invades, as shown in my last ranked game now. The sapling is actually scaring off the enemy from doing anything. That about wraps it up for this Maokai tutorial. Thank you very much for sticking to the end. If this tutorial helped you at all, please leave me a like, a comment. That all helps build the channel, guys. Thank you very much, and I'll catch you next time on Improving Your League.